If you can read the 8th verse once more.
Yes. And the Lord, He is that do it go before thee. He's the one that's going to go with you. He will be with you. He will not fail you, neither forsake you. Fear not, neither be dismayed.
So we see Moses first, he spoke to the people and he told the people that the promise is in your grasp. Now he said, look, I have to speak to the upcoming leader, the one that's going to lead you into the promised land. Joshua, I have to encourage you. Joshua, just as God was with me, I want you to know God is with you, because it was never me the whole time, but it was the power of God working through me. Joshua, you're not in this alone. I'm charging you. Yes, I know that you're going to have to undertake this load, and it's not an easy thing to take the load of the people after you're watching the previous leader beginning to transition over, and then the Lord say, well, now it's your time to step up to the plate. So I could imagine Joshua probably was like a little bit fearful in that moment, but Moses encouraged him, said, just as I told the people, I want you not to fear. God is with you. God goes before you. God, he said, fear not, be dismayed, don't be discouraged. You got in you what you need to get the job done. God has given you power, Joshua. God has given you love, Joshua. God has given you a sound mind. This is why he chose you to walk this walk, to go this path. So he tells Joshua, fear not, I give you a charge, Joshua. Don't you worry. You can get the job done and it will be accomplished. But first you got to stand on what God said and believe him and have your confidence in him. He charged them not to fear and be confident in what has been spoken, because God was in the plan. Joshua, God is in this plan. I don't care how much resistance that is against you, the resistance that's coming that you're about to walk into. And Joshua, matter of fact, you have resistance in your own camp, because you got to understand this. You see, Moses, he had to deal with the previous generation. Now he was dealing with the new generation, and they was just as disobedient as their forefathers. They carried the same spirit, but he was telling Joshua, even in your camp, they may murmur, they may complain, Joshua, but Joshua, be strong. God is for you. God called you to do what you are doing. Joshua, not only in your camp, Joshua, that you're going to go through the enemy and he's going to challenge what you say. And I could go back to Apostle Paul. Timothy, you got to preach that word in season and out of season. How many of you are doing what God say? How many of you are following what the Apostle Paul instructed Timothy to do? So I see Moses saying the same thing to Joshua. You got to stand on what God said. You got to stand on his promises, because God is in the plan. God ordained this. God called you to do what you're doing. But I charge you, not only you, Joshua, but I charge the people, those that are following you, those that may complain, because you're telling them this is the route that God told me to go. And then they begin to murmur and they begin to complain. But Moses said, look, I have to let them know too. Let me tell you something. You move that fear out the way, because fear brings about destruction. Fear brings about you will not accomplish what God calls you to do. Fear will limit you. You would never reach your full potential if you allow fear to overtake you. But God said you challenge that. How do you challenge that? With the power of the Holy Spirit. How do you challenge that? Challenge that with love, with unconditional love. That I'm going to love regardless of what they say and what they do. I'm going to tell them right from wrong. See, Timothy, tell them right from wrong, the Apostle Paul was saying, because that is love and a sound mind. I'm going to stay close to God, and I'm going to meditate on his word day and night. And if I do that, then I'm able to counteract the effects of fear.
You know, as I was doing my part, I was preparing my part. I said, look how many times we hear these two words, fear not. Fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. And I counted and counted and I had to stop at 50. I said, okay, I get the message. Fear not. Yeah. I wasn't researching be not afraid, or I just wanted these two words, fear not. And I stopped at 20. I stopped at 50, sorry. And at 50, the Holy Spirit said, now start writing. Fear not, right? Fear not. So, I want to go back to what you were saying a little earlier, right? And he gave them power. And I want to talk about, just for a very quick moment, how we use and abuse our power. I prepared a whole lot of stuff for you to hear and be encouraged with. And as you were preaching, I got a download, and the Holy Spirit said He gave them power, and how are we using our power, and how are we using it for good or using it for bad, and how sometimes with this power that we get, we become so mighty in ourselves that we abuse this power. And I want to go back for a moment, right? How fear can be good and fear can be bad. And with the power that you have, how you can and cannot abuse the power, how you can use the power for good or you can use the power for evil. And I'm thinking back to when I was a little girl. And this is not in the script. I'm just going to go according to the Holy Spirit. And I was growing up. And I am one of 9. And I'm the second to last. And there's one, I have a brother after me. And we grew up in, I'm going to tell the truth, in a very, very difficult environment. A very difficult, abusive environment. I saw so often, way too many times as a child should see. And I'm speaking to somebody today, and your children and you are experiencing so much fear because of somebody's abuse of power. And yes, you're hearing the word. God has not given us the spirit of fear, and you are living in fear. And as a child, I lived in fear for decades. In fear. And some of you are in fear now. And I just want to take a moment to talk to you and let you know